Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping straight into a highly provocative, deeply philosophical essay today by an author named Zhu Feng. It's titled Selfishness, Heaven, and the Gene of Life. And let me tell you, this is a text that completely flips how we view human nature, spirituality, and really the very fabric of society. I'm super excited to guide you through this material because it challenges some of the most basic assumptions we have about why the world is the way it is. But before we go any further, I want to ask you a very direct question. Do you believe in the existence of heaven? Take a second, just pause, and honestly answer that in your head. Well, Zhu Feng actually opens his essay with this exact question to challenge us right out of the gate. He wants to know where you stand before he reveals his core philosophy. Now, if you hesitated just now, or if you outright don't believe in heaven, Zhu Feng's response is incredibly striking. He writes, "Because there are cancer cells in your life genes, these cancer cells are those of selfishness." He's taking a completely neutral yet intensely metaphysical stance here. He argues that doubting heaven isn't just a difference of intellectual opinion. Rather, he views that doubt as a symptom of a literal, spiritual genetic disease that afflicts humanity. To explain this blindness, Zhu Feng argues that selfishness acts as an impenetrable barrier. It's like a giant wall. He compares a selfish person trying to understand selflessness to someone who has never studied geography, so they just cannot comprehend time differences. You know, like someone who literally can't believe it's noon somewhere else while they're sleeping in the dark. Or think of a person who has never experienced hunger trying to understand what starving actually feels like. If you're bound by selfishness, the concept of a pure heavenly state simply cannot compute in your mind.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Selfishness, the Genetic Cancer.
So, the author gets incredibly literal here. He defines selfishness as the cancer cell of the life gene. In this framework, selfishness isn't just a minor character flaw, right? It's not a bad habit that we can just wave away. It is an active, destructive force that devours the perfection of life little by little until it descends into hell. He treats it as a terminal disease of the soul that systematically degrades human existence. And just how widespread is this disease? Well, according to the text, 99%. 99% of people either doubt or outright disbelieve in the existence of heaven. And Zhu Feng's entire argument rests on the idea that this massive majority of humanity is deeply infected with this exact cancer of selfishness. It's a staggering number for sure, but it frames the massive scale of the philosophical problem he's trying to solve. Which brings us to Section 2, the root of all conflict. If you've ever looked around and wondered why society just can't seem to get along, well, Zhu Feng has a very clear list of culprits. He points to differences in our three outlooks: greed, hatred, ignorance, incompetence, and suspicion. He even lists protecting the interests of the nation and holding differing beliefs. But here's what's absolutely crucial to grasp about Zhu Feng's philosophy. He attributes absolutely every single one of these disputes solely to human selfishness. Every argument, every battle, every instance of ugliness in society, it all stems from this one single root cause. And this brilliantly illustrates a stark dichotomy the author sets up. On one side, a society of selfish people creates hell. They are the makers of anxiety, worry, and fear. But on the exact opposite side, a society of selfless people creates heaven. The text argues that the territory created by selfless people is quite literally heaven on earth, while the territory built by those with selfish motives inevitably drags us right back into misery. Let's look at Section 3, the selfless archetypes. Zhu Feng emphatically argues that completely selfless people actually do exist, and he points to historical archetypes as proof. We're talking about Christ Jesus, Buddha Shakyamuni, immortal Lao Tzu, Mother Teresa, and Western missionaries who traveled to China to build hospitals and schools. The text uses these figures to impartially demonstrate that operating without selfish motives isn't just some fantasy or a myth. It has been achieved right here on Earth by real people. To describe these specific individuals, the author uses some pretty specialized terminology. He defines angels and bodhisattvas not as mythical winged creatures living up in the clouds, but as any human beings on Earth who are totally selfless. So the crucial takeaway here is that in this text, becoming an angel is a completely reachable earthly state for a human being. It simply requires the total, absolute eradication of selfishness. The author then takes this a step further with a very specific modern claim. He states that when completely selfless individuals, whom he refers to as Chanyuan celestials, gather together, they can literally copy the scenes of heaven into a picturesque Xanadu. The text claims that the second home created by Lifechanyuan is solid proof of this heaven on earth. He presents this community as tangible, real-world evidence supporting his entire metaphysical theory. Moving on to Section 4, the maze of human nature. Now, Xu introduces a fascinating concept here, the maze of selfishness. He describes this as one of the 36 8-diagrams arrays. It's built on a deeply ingrained belief, a trap, really, which says those who do not live for themselves will be punished by Tao. This really highlights just how powerfully human beings are conditioned to be selfish. We are literally taught by the world around us that self-preservation, putting ourselves first, is the absolute only way to survive the natural order. Let's walk through exactly how this trap operates on mortal life. Step 1. You're born as a human in the Saha world, which is the mortal realm. Step 2. Because of that heavy societal conditioning we just discussed, you're bound tightly by the maze of selfishness. You truly feel you have to be selfish to survive. And Step 3. Because you hold on to that selfishness, you become trapped in the cycle of the 6 worlds. This maze effectively prevents humans from transcending the 3 realms. You're basically stuck on a karmic loop of your own making. Which brings us to the final part, Section 5, the ultimate fate of life. So the crucial point is that nobody gets a free pass. The text states, regardless of whether it is Buddha, immortals, once they become selfish, they will be destroyed by Tao. Xu believes these rules are absolute. Even divine beings, angels, or bodhisattvas, if they allow that cancer cell of selfishness back into their being, they will be laid down into the mortal world and fall right back into that cycle of the 6 worlds. The law of the universe, according to this text, is entirely unforgiving of selfishness. But, the reverse is also profoundly true, and it's deeply egalitarian. Think about who can actually enter heaven if they are selfless. Emperors, beggars, professors, illiterates, workers, farmers. Earthly status, intelligence, background, and class, they mean absolutely nothing in this framework. The sole currency of heaven is selflessness. If a beggar is completely selfless, they walk right in, no questions asked. However, there is one major, deeply polarizing exception in the text. The author explicitly states, rich people will never be accepted into the kingdom of heaven, no matter how well they do charity. His argument is that wealth itself is essentially a synonym for selfishness. He challenges the reader directly. How could you possibly become rich without some underlying selfish motive driving you? He cements this logic with a very striking observation. He says, after all, there are no poor people in heaven, and there are no rich people there either. Xu reasons that whether you get rich by wisdom, by creation, or by service, the mere existence of poor people who oppose your wealth proves your selfish nature. In a perfect selfless ecosystem, which is what heaven is, extreme wealth simply cannot exist alongside poverty. All of this leaves us with the ultimate puzzle of human nature. Can human nature ever truly escape the maze of selfishness? If selflessness is the most perfect character of life, and selfishness is the genetic cancer dragging us down into conflict and hell, can we ever realistically cure ourselves? It's a deeply provocative question to leave you with, one that really forces us to look inward at our own motivations, our invisible barriers, and our potential for true perfection. I hope this explainer helped you grasp the fascinating architecture of Xu Feng's essay. Thanks for learning with me today, and keep questioning what drives you.